So people sometimes ask us why recipes call for inches of ginger. Because it is kind of weird, right? Like ginger is this three-dimensional object, so what gives? No, a short answer and a long answer. The short answer is that it does not matter. Inches of ginger is an approximate measurement. It's kind of like saying that the restaurant is a 5-minute walk down the road. When you see this measurement, that's your cue to not be obsessive. The recipe's calling for, like this much ginger. But then I think the natural question is, why would you choose an approximate measurement? Wouldn't you want to be more exact? And I think that's actually a really interesting question, because I think it really cuts to the core of what we're all actually doing when we're cooking, how we can possibly communicate that, and also the limits of that communication. Now, for the long answer, I feel like I first need to outline two systems, two workflows in the kitchen, which I'll call by feel and by weight. Now, if you grew up with English language cookbooks and blogs, both systems might actually be a little bit different than what you're used to. And to show you what I mean, let's take a look at a recipe. So this is a recipe from the always excellent Kenji Lopez Alt. This one is for curry. Now, when I was first cooking, the way I think a lot of us are taught in America is to first look at our ingredients. So here I've got 1.5 teaspoons of cumin, so I'm grabbing my teaspoon. I've got a 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, so I'm grinding that and then trying to shuffle it into my 1/4 teaspoon. Now, this is a 1/4 cup of lime juice, so I'm grabbing my Pyrex. Now I'm chopping up cilantro and dumping it into a 1/4 cup. You get the idea. Now, there's ways that you can optimize this so that it's a little bit less of a mess, but there is a better way. And I think a lot of you might know it already, and that is going by weight. So here's what you do. You get a digital scale. You put it down onto your counter. Then you find a recipe that goes by weight and not by volume. Here I have one for a Hanglei curry powder. So 10 grams of coriander seed, tare. 8 grams of cumin, tare. 1 gram of grated nutmeg, and so on. This is going to present us with a few advantages. First, it's simple. There's going to be no fumbling around with cups and tablespoons. Second, it's also going to give us a much more replicable standard. For example, here Kenji's going to be calling for 1 small onion. But how small is small? Like my small onion is 94 grams. Your small onion might be a little bit different. Now, this isn't going to be a problem if you're serving 4, but if you scaled this thing up significantly, it might be. So I know that at least in China, if you look at professional recipes that are meant to be shared between restaurants and between chefs, by weight is the system that they're going to be using. For example, this here is an industry periodical meant for proprietors of Sichuanese restaurants. This is going to be their ingredient list. If you follow the excellent Chef Wang Gang, you'll note that in his recipes, this is the measurement system that he uses and what he communicates. It's standardized. There's no cups, no inches, no centimeters, 20 grams of ginger. So then, if this is so much better and so much clearer, like maybe I've just convinced you, why doesn't Kenji use it? For that matter, why don't we use it? If you're a baker with some experience, you probably already use this system, at least with some recipes. And the reason why, I think, is that by weight as a system isn't competing with by volume. Weight is unquestionably better. It's competing with by feel, or maybe you could say by experience. Because let's talk about baking. It's a common trope that cooking is an art and baking is a science. With cooking, you can go by feel, but in baking, the recipe must be followed to the letter. But how exact is baking really? One of the most fundamental variables in dough making is hydration. And this refers to just how much water you're adding into your flour. A hydration of 75% is going to get you something like a Western-style bread, while 42% is going to get you a very dry Chinese-style noodle dough. Now I want you to take a look at this. On the right, we have a brand of flour called Saibeixue. It's renowned for la mian making, and adding 50 grams of water to it. On the left, we have another brand called Arowana, and it's, for this bag, basically the same protein percentage. The flour on the left will need almost 10 grams more water than the flour on the right to get to the same spot. That's 10% hydration. That's huge. If we made a bao recipe based off of the flour on the left, but if you were using the flour on the right, you would end up getting a drastically different end result. How fresh your flour is, the specific wheat that's used, how finely milled it is. All of these are going to drastically impact that incredibly fundamental variable. Now, there are certain ways that you can control for this. For example, King Arthur flour is a very good flour, but it's known for being quite thirsty, meaning that it needs a lot of water. So King Arthur, on their website, have like this whole database of recipes that are all calibrated specifically for King Arthur flour. I've seen some recipe writers specify a specific brand of flour, and that's also a route that you could go. But I think that this can quickly spiral out of control because, like, where do we stop? Do I need to call for this soy sauce and not this soy sauce because I use this one? They are pretty different. Even how salty your salt is can depend on the brand. Attempting to minimize all of these variables will quickly lead you to something like that infamous 20-page brownie recipe from the US Army. It's a 20-page recipe because it's not a recipe. It's a technical document that details a standardized manufacturing process. But there is another way, and that's going by feel and by experience. And in some ways, this is all actually what we're all doing when you step into the kitchen. You're making a million little judgment calls. This clove of garlic is a little small. Maybe I'll use 2. My mince here was a little rough. Maybe I'll give it a few more chops. I like frying my sprouts until they're this level of golden brown, so I'm going to stop here. Basically, nobody fries garlic for 2 minutes. You fry it until it feels right? Thus the trope, fry till fragrant. And as you continue to cook, what used to have to be spelled out for you then can become second nature. When Steph's working a dough, she's not setting a timer. She's looking for a specific texture. When we're marinating things, we're not measuring out the soy sauce, the wine, like we do in our videos. You can get a sense of the correct amount, and then you can go from there. Now, I know that this might feel fluffy, but quite often, this can actually lead us to a more consistent end result. Because at the end of cooking, you're going to taste your food and calibrate. Is this salty enough? Add salt. Does it taste a little flat? You can add pepper or vinegar. Does it taste a little too harsh? You can add sugar or MSG. Does it feel like it's missing depth? You can add a little bit of all of the above. This is why a lot of recipes will direct you to season to taste at the end. In our recipes, we specifically tell you the seasoning that we're adding at the end. I think it's a little bit easier if you're learning a new cuisine. But once you get that experience, that judgment call is yours. Because in my personal view, recipes aren't ISO standards. They're lesson plans. Our goal is to teach you how to cook this food. I believe the worst thing for me to do as your teacher would be to jump to by-feel measurements. Some older Chinese recipes do this, and even as an intermediate cook, it can be kind of obnoxious. You need a starting point. You don't start learning math with number theory or, even formal logic. You start by learning basic operations that you can apply to your everyday life almost immediately. But you also might not want to start people off with a calculator. They're going to use it eventually, and it's important, and similarly, by weight is an incredibly useful system. especially for baking and professional kitchens. But our goal is to build a bridge to an intuition for Chinese cooking, one of the world's great cooking systems, so that you can learn to think in the kitchen like he does and she does, and then apply that wisdom to whatever cuisine you generally make. So, yeah, an inch of ginger is like this much ginger. It might vary slightly between stir fries, between nights, between recipes, and that's okay. So I know that this one was a little bit of a weird one. I know that sometimes my ugly mug kind of breaks the immersion. But we wanted to give this format a try. I don't know, brush the dust off of old teacher Chris. If you felt this video was useful, let us know. If you hated it, also let us know in the comments. That's fine. Either way, a huge thank you to everybody that's supporting us on Patreon. Quite literally, we could not make this content full-time without you guys, so thank you. And of course, subscribe for more Chinese cooking videos.